Okay, good morning, everyone, and Chazak Baruch. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Tuesday morning. My friends, as we are studying together Perashat Vayeshev. Vayeshev means to dwell. Perashat begins, Vayeshev Yaakov be'eretz megurei aviv be'eretz Canaan. Yaakov, he dwells, he resides, he lives, he goes back home after spending many years in Galut, in exile, with his father-in-law Lavan, and then having to deal with Esav a little bit for a couple of years. Eventually, he makes it back home and he settles in the land of his father's homeland. Be'eretz Canaan, in the land of Israel, in the land of Canaan. Ele toledot Yaakov, and this is the story of Yaakov. Yosef ben Sheva Esrei Shana, he had a son Yosef, we know, his 11th child. Haya ro'eh et ehav batzon, and he was a shepherd along with his brothers. Vehu na'ar, and he was a young kid. Et bnei Bilha et bnei Zilpa neshe aviv. He would often play with the sons of Bilha and Zilpa. Vayabe Yosef et dibatam ra'a el avihem, and he would bring all of the evil reports to his father. Here, we're being told a lot in just one pasuk. But right away, something that we're told, the Midrash points out, is two contradictory things. The Midrash says, and I read to you Midrash Rabbah, Yosef ben Sheva Esrei Shana. Yosef is at this time 17 years old. Now 17 in the Torah's time is not 17 of 2024. Okay? Today your guy is 17, your guy is 37, and he's still a baby. Okay? You're talking about 17 in a time of maturity, in a time of Torah, 3,000 years ago. Okay? Kids at 17, they were married with kids. You know what I mean? Rivka, according to the rabbis, she was 3 when she met Eliezer. Okay? So literally or not, I'm not sure. But the point is that people back then, they matured very quickly. You go to Israel today, the kid's 4 years old and he's pushing the stroller. He's taking his little 2-year-old sister to the shuk to go buy his mom something. You know what I mean? Things, in Israel, you see the level of maturity is unbelievable. What a kid goes through already by the time they're 21. They went to war and everything. They've seen it all. So Yosef is 17. He's no kid. And yet the pasuk calls him a na'ar. Pasuk says, Vehu na'ar. Says the Midrash, how could it be? Ela shehaya oseh ma'aseh na'arut. It means that he would do adolescent things. Memashmesh be'enav, he would preen his eyes. Metaleh be'akavo, he would step high with his heel. Metaken be'sa'aro, and he was constantly grooming his hair. Yosef, the Midrash says, wasn't a kid, he was an adult. But he acted like a kid. He was doing kid-like things. Only kids prune their eyes and preen their eyes and play with their hair and step in ways that make make them look tall, right? The Midrash continues. Haya ro'eh, he was a shepherd. Vayabe Yosef, and he would bring their evil reports to their father. Says the Midrash, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Meir Omer, they each have an opinion of what was the evil report. Hashudim hen banecha al eved mnahai. He would come and say to his dad, Dad, I think your sons are eating a limb of a living creature. We know one of the 7 Noahide laws, even for Goyim, is they're not allowed to eat an animal unless it's first killed. They don't have to do shechita, they don't have to kill it by the neck like we do. But they're not allowed to just cut off a limb and then eat the limb. That's called eved min hahai, a limb of a living creature. That's forbidden even for a non-Jew. They have to first kill the animal, okay? And the first rabbi, Rabbi Meir, says that Yosef, he would bring evil reports to his dad, and he would tell his dad things like this, that, my brothers, your sons, they're eating the animal before killing it. Rabbi Shimon has a different opinion. Tolin hen enehem bebnot haaretz. Dad, they're with the women of Canaan, the non-Jewish women. They're shufing the G's over here. Okay. That's a second opinion. Immorality, I guess. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Mezalzelin hen b'bnei hashfahot. Yosef would tell his dad that the brothers are picking on the maidservant's children. Remember, Yaakov had 4 wives, the 2 main ones, Rahel and Leah, and then the 2 maidservants, Bilhah and Zilpah. Rahel had 2 kids, Leah had 6 kids, so that's 8, and the maidservants had 2 each. 2 and 2 is 12. So Yosef is telling his dad that the brothers, they're picking on those 4 sons of the maidservants, the 2 and the 2. And they're bullying them. So these are 3 opinions that he's telling, he's squealing that they're eating not kosher, immorality, and they're bullying the maidservants' children. Rabbi Yehuda bar Simon Omar, and ends off Rabbi Yehuda bar Simon, and he says the following: Ve'al tlatehon laka, and he ends up getting punished on all 3, Yosef. Pasuk says, Peles umozne mishpat laHashem. A scale and just balances are Hashem's. That's midah keneged midah, we call it. Measure for measure. Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God says to Yosef, Ata amarta hashudim anecha aleven min ha'hai. You think that they're eating a limb of an animal? Hayecha, you'll see. Afilu b'sha'ah she'kalkala. Even in their lowest of lows of points, even as they're selling their own brother, you'll see Yosef. In a few psukim we're going to read, they end up selling Yosef. Even in that time of their degradation, in their lowest state, ethically, morally. Enam ela shohatim. They only eat kosher. They don't dare eat the animal before killing it. Like it says, Vayishhetu se'irizim. The story is very clear later on that as they sat to eat, as ruthless as they were in selling their brother, horrible. But even they made sure to only eat kosher in that time. Human nature is sometimes, when we fall, we fall. Avera goreret avera. Sometimes a person does an ugly thing, and because they do an ugly thing, they let go completely. Sometimes a person, it could be in health. Maybe they gain weight and they let go completely. We don't sometimes, right? In life, it's all or nothing for us. Either we're healthy, or we go all out and we eat everything horrible, right? There's no such thing sometimes for us as moderation. We forget that. And sin is the same. When we sin, we say, you know what, that's it. Today's a bad day. Today I sinned. I'm going to do all the sins, right? But the brothers, they didn't talk like that. Even though they sold Yosef, which was bad, but they made sure to not eat taref, not to eat ever min ha'hai. And God says to Yosef, look, you think they're eating ever min ha'hai? You'll see with your own eyes how they're careful on ever min ha'hai. That's number 1. Number 2, Ata amarta mezalzelim hem b'nei hashfahot. You think that they're picking on the maidservants, on the children. They're belittling them, they're bullying them. Le'eved nimkar Yosef. You will be sold as a slave. You want to blame them of treating slaves? You'll be a slave. And number 3, Ata amarta tolin nehem b'not haaretz. You think that they're struggling with immorality. Let's see how you fare. Let's send the Midrash says, Hayecha ani begare becha et hadov. I will send after you the bear. Like it says later on, Vatisa eshet adonav, that his master's wife lifted her eyes, etc., etc., etc. And that is the whole episode with Potiphar's wife, where Yosef is tempted. And Yosef over here is being, punished, measure for measure, 3 for 3. And our rabbis over here are telling us something very powerful. Yosef HaTzadik is called a kid. And he's playing with his eyes and his hair. He's trying to look tall, right? Now, these were things that God actually gave him because God knew one day Yosef's going to be a king. Yosef has in him royalty and leadership. And as a king, by the way, a king has to look good. Melech beyofio tehezena enecha. A king's got to always, I don't know if you knew this, he's got to get a haircut every day, okay? Can't have unshaven king. A king's got to always have his nails cut. A king's always got to look good. King has to look good in the eyes of the people. Top stuff. Always, he's got to get his tanning salon in, Part of being a king. People, you know what they say when in speaking, by the way, they say, I don't know if the numbers are exactly as I'm saying now, but they say 50% of what you say is really how you look. And 40% is how you sound. And 10% is what you say. So 50%, a guy gets up there to give a speech and he looks good, he looks the part, you're already listening. It's human nature. So a king, if people are going to obey, if people are going to be subservient, if people are going to follow, if people are going to respect, if people are going to admire, a big part of that is how you look. And Yosef is destined to be a king. So God gave him the nature that he needed in order to fulfill that role. He was using it maybe prematurely. He was using it at the wrong time. But Yosef has in him royalty. So he's playing with his hair and his eyes. One day it's going to come in handy. But the Pasuk says that he is a Na'ar. You know why he is a Na'ar? Because at this stage of his life, what Yosef is doing, and you see this amazing idea, you see Yosef developing as a person. At this stage of his life, he is a Na'ar, he is immature. Because immature people, they bring negative reports about other people. That is how immature people are. That is how a Na'ar is. Great people, they forgive. Great people lift. Great people defend. Great people are advocates. Great people, in Hebrew it's called melitz yosher. They seek merits. They look for the good, not for the mistakes. And Yosef, in the beginning of his career, as a destined king, he starts off a Na'ar, he starts off very immature. And you find a lot of times people, when they're younger, in their youth, as they start off in their career, they're very dismissive, they're very critical, they're very judgmental. But over here, Yosef, and that's how he begins. He begins as a little kid. He begins as a Na'ar. He begins talking bad about his brothers, finding their flaws. But as he matures throughout his life, and you see this amazing transformation take place, you see what a true great leader he ends up becoming. Because a leader is not about finding flaws in other people. It's not about being powerful over people. But it's about your ability to empower other people. It's about lifting them, raising them. Yosef in the beginning, he's talking bad about his brothers. But how does he continue as he evolves as a human being? As he becomes a true king. And this is what true leadership is about. It's not about knocking people, but about lifting people. Not about showing what they're doing wrong, but about helping point out to them what they're doing right. Yosef, at the end of the story, what does it say? The brothers beg for forgiveness. And Yosef tells his brothers a few times, just to fast forward to the end of the story, after they've sold him and after they've knocked him. And Yosef, all he has, at this point, he has every right to criticize them. If he was talking gossip before, if he was bringing evil reports before, how much more so could he bring evil reports now? But Yosef evolves. Yosef matures. Yosef now, Ata lo atem shelachtem oti hena. Guys, you didn't do anything. Really, this was part of Hashem's plan. He's reframing their actions. He's giving excuses for them. He says, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. God sent me ahead to provide for you. I will feed you and your children and your sheep. He's comforting them. And he's talking to their hearts. Yosef becomes somebody who every leader needs to become. And that is a person who is forgiving. A person who is raising the people around them. That is true leadership. Parents are not there to point out to their kids what they're doing wrong. That's not your job as a parent. A king, a spouse. That's how you start off when you're a Na'ar. When you're a little kid. Little kids talk evil. Little kids point out. But the great tzaddikim, They always found virtues. They always found the merits. They always looked for the good. And you see every tzaddik in history, they had this common theme. They always looked of what were the people around them doing right, even if they're doing 10 things wrong. They were melitz yosher. They were finding what could I find to justify what's good in this person. I know what's wrong in this person, but what's good? They would look for the good. The tzaddikim always looked for the good. Moshe Rabbeinu, the greatest leader in history. God says, I'm done. They're stubborn. They're committing idolatry. What does Moshe say? God, you got to forgive them. They're good. They're stubborn. Stubborn can be a very good thing, you know. If a non-Jew is going to come and say, come bow down to idols, stubborn means, no, I'm not. Stubborn, God, you need stubborn. Korah, God, Moshe and Aaron, they prayed. Vayiplu Penehim. They prayed. A leader is not about killing. It's not about finding flaws. It's about bringing life. It's about bringing peace. And you know who's a real leader or not based on the way they talk, on the way they act, on how they interact with the people around them. True sign of a king is a person who's looking to promote life. Person who's looking to extend forgiveness. That is a true sign of a leader. You may remember the story of Shlomo HaMelech. Shlomo HaMelech, when he was a young fellow, a new king, it says he was blessed with tremendous chokhmah. Tremendous chokhmah. What was so wise about Shlomo? What was so smart? The Navi tells us a story. The story is brought in Melachim, the book of Kings. The famous story where these two women came claiming that a certain baby was theirs. Each one said it's mine. They both slept at an inn, and in the middle of the night, they both had a baby, and one of them died, and the other one came and stole the baby of the other in the middle of the night. And she switched the babies. And the mother woke up and she sees a dead child, but then she sees that the child is not her child. And then she sees her neighbor, the other lady in the other room, with her child, with her baby. And they're each fighting over the baby. It's mine. No, it's mine. How do you know who's right? They didn't have DNA. So they went to King Solomon, Shlomo HaMelech. And Shlomo HaMelech, we know, after asking all the questions, he doesn't know what to do. But he had tremendous chokhmah. So he says, you know what? Bring me a sword. Let's cut the baby. We have no other option. We have to cut it in half. And let's divide the child. Eventually the mother, what did the mother say? The mother said, no. Actually, I was lying. It's her baby. Let her keep the whole baby. You don't have to kill the baby. Because Shlomo's wisdom was in realizing that a true parent is looking to preserve life, prolong life, not divide, not kill, not cut in half. Only a fake parent would do that. A real parent is looking to extend life, to extend forgiveness. And that's how he knew who the real mother was. And this is who Yosef becomes. Yosef begins by prosecuting his brothers, by bringing their reports to his dad. The pasuk says, you're still a little kid. You have a lot to learn if that's how you are. If all you could do is find what's wrong with all the people around you. They don't learn, they don't keep Shabbat, they don't give, they don't pray, they don't care, they don't. Some people, they're professional at always finding what's wrong with the world. They could come in. Some people even get paid for this, by the way. They come in to get paid to do and to scan and to analyze and to critique. Now, that's what you're getting paid to do in a warehouse, that's one thing. But in life, that's a very bad way to live. That's a child way to live. That's Yosef, he's a na'ar. True greatness is now moving to the next step. Instead of saying how your brothers are so bad, being able to say, my brothers are so good. It's not your fault. You didn't mean it. You were coerced. You didn't know better. Melitz Yosher. Am I better than you? I don't know what your tests are. If I had your temptation, I would probably be worse than you. They're looking for excuses for other people, the tzaddikim. These are the great people. They are always giving excuses for other people. You know, Chafetz Chaim, he once saw a guy one of the students was struggling to learn. He had a hard time sitting. Today we call it ADHD. Back then they didn't have the diagnosis yet. So they called it the hard time to learn. And Chafetz Chaim, what did he say to the boy? Now, what's the matter with you? Sit down. Focus. He didn't say that. You know what he said? He said, wow. I am so jealous of you. I am so jealous of you. Because lefum ta'ara agra, the harder something is, the greater the reward. Do you know how precious your reward is in Shamayim? I wish it was so hard for me like it's hard for you. You are going to be light years ahead of me in Shamayim. That's what the Chafetz Chaim told him. He showed him the potential. He showed him the greatness, the diamonds that are lying in the struggle, that are laying in the struggle ahead. That's how he motivated. Not by knocking him. And you should always know, by the way, in life, motivation works so much more powerful than punishment. You know, you're trying to get your kid to do something. You could either say, if you don't, you're not watching. Or you could say, if you do, you will watch for 10 more minutes. Two different approaches. Both are the same goal. The goal is to get him to sit and learn. But you try this 10 out of 10 times, I guarantee you, the kid will respond much better to positive reinforcement, motivation. That's how we respond best. And this is the sign of a leader. A leader is there to praise, to point out the virtues. Rav Yerucham said, every Jew has to know what his flaws are so that he can know what he has to fix. But he must, more importantly, must know what his virtues are so he can know what he can accomplish. And a tzaddik, our job as parents, as friends, as siblings, is to point out to the people around us what they're good at. What are their kochot? What are their strengths? What are their tools? What did God give them? What are they going to bring to the world? What are they able to... Where do they shine? Where do they shine? And this is what the tzaddikim always did. You know, if you're a teacher, you notice a kid has a hard time sitting, maybe misbehaving. Instead of reprimanding, Yosef, when he's young, reprimands. Na'ar. As they get older, Yosef realizes that he tells the kid a very different conversation. Wow, I love your energy. Psh, you with that energy, you know what you could be doing? They see every flaw, there's a flip side of the flaw, flip side of the coin. And they realize there's an asset here. There's a strength. There's something that I could use. Whatever bothers you about your spouse, there's actually something good in that exact midah of why you should love your spouse. You hate that your spouse is always saying yes to everyone, people pleaser, the whole world, yes, and it annoys you because they don't ever know how to say no, right? It could be annoying sometimes to be married to someone like that. They're always saying yes, people pleaser, because then they don't ever get to do what they want, and then you have to hear it. But guess what? People pleaser also means people please you. That's right. That's a selfless way to live. So yeah, maybe it needs a little bit of balance, but overall, that's a beautiful thing. That they're so selfless that they're always thinking of other people. They don't want to bother other people. They're happy to, ruin their own holiday to make someone else's happy. That's a beautiful thing. And you got to see that. How many people, when they're dating, they find something that's, I don't know, she's always with her family. She's all day going to be with her family now, with her parents. Dude, don't you realize that's going to be you one day? You're going to be part of her family. She's going to stick with you thick and thin till the very end. Doesn't matter what you do, where you go, she's going to be with you. So look for the good. Look for the good. And the more we do that, the more we mature. And that is what Yosef teaches us. There's a great story over here. And again, we've promoted this book in the past, a must-read, Positivity Bias. Okay? If you're looking for a book to help you realize that life is all about thinking positive, seeing positive. One of the stories of here as follows. Rebbe had founded an organization to counter attempts by Christian missionaries and fringe religious cults to recruit Jews. He did so anonymously in order to attract support from Orthodox communities outside of Chabad Lubavitch. The Rebbe's role became known, however, and one of the organization's leaders removed his name, and this leader removed his name and started his own effort along the same lines, which leached support and donations from the original group. The original organization's manager, a non-Lubavitcher chassid, was appalled by the rival leader's politically motivated action and confronted him with written evidence in hand. But the rabbi in question flatly denied having been involved with forming the newer organization. Frustrated and disillusioned, the original manager consulted the Rebbe and told him the story. How could this rabbi put politics before principles? He asked the Rebbe in anguish. The Rebbe responded by citing a Talmudic discussion. The Gemara says that a king or a Kohen Gadol cannot be a judge when it comes to whether or not we should establish a leap year. We know that in Judaism, we calculate the moon, the holidays based on the moon, right? We are a lunar-based religion. Our holidays are all based on the moon, which is 354 days a year. And the sun is a 365-day year. So there's an 11-day discrepancy. And the way we adjust for the discrepancy, in order that we shouldn't keep falling back 11 days, times, if you times it by 10 years, then Pesach will be in December. So the way we adjust is we add a leap year. Every 3 years we add an entire month. So it averages out, right? Around every 3 years we add 11, 22, 33. So we add in a month. But the Gemara says that a rabbi, a Kohen Gadol or a king is not allowed to be on that panel, on that court, to decide whether or not we should add a month. You know why? Because they're biased. The king is biased. The king may want an extra month because he's going to want to have an extra month of taxes. And the Kohen Gadol, he's not going to want the month because the earlier Yom Kippur is the warmer the weather. I don't know if you ever went to a cold plunge or to a cold mikveh, freezing. So the Kohen Gadol, he would prefer if the holidays were earlier in the season. This way he wouldn't have to dip in such cold water. So the Kohen Gadol and the king, they're biased. So the rabbi says, such is human nature. We are all prone to subconscious calculation of self-interest, whether we know it or not. Even a Jewish king and even a high priest. And he then reminded the manager that the rabbi he was judging for his conduct had been the leader of a large community in yeshiva in Europe that had been completely wiped out during the Holocaust. Now he was trying to establish a yeshiva in New York for which he was dependent on certain donors who were ideologically opposed to Lubavitch. And the rabbi said, "This is all he has," said the Rebbe. "Can you blame him for wanting to ensure the success of his important work and life legacy at all costs?" This is what the rabbi is saying. The Lubavitcher Rebbe is finding excuses for this other rabbi who started an organization and pulled funding from his own organization. But he's finding excuses. Melitz tov. Look for merit. Hazit is all he has. He doesn't have other people. He doesn't have other organizations. He lost everything in Europe. What do you want from the guy? Wow. So this is what we learn from Yosef. Yosef's a na'ar, and he transforms. True greatness is not about control, not about criticize, but about lifting. If you find yourself constantly judging people, so maybe this pirasha is for you. Maybe this is where we have to take a deep breath and start realizing, okay, that's step one, fine. But if I'm going to step up and be a king, if I want to be like Yosef, if I want to be like Moshe, if I want to be like Shlomo HaMelech, I got to see the potential. I got to forgive. I got to guide them. I got to point out their strengths. And then we will as well become leaders, not with power, but with the ability to empower all those around us. Stop over here. Have a wonderful day, and hopefully we'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.